On March 26, 2013, Marta Herde was driving through Arklow at around 5:30 a.m. The 29-year-old Polish waitress was heading towards her colleague's house, 31-year-old Kasaba Orsos from Hungary. Less than half an hour later, Marta would drive her Volkswagen Passat through the crash barriers of South Quay Pier and into the water. Fortunately, her window was open and she was able to escape. She climbed up the ladder and ran, screaming. Gardaí would come across the soaking wet woman, as she would tell them that there was someone else in the water and that they needed to help. She was taken to hospital while the search began for her passenger. She would tell the paramedic, "He shouldn't have been there. I drove the car into the water." She kept saying his name, Kasaba. His body would be found washed up on the beach later that day. She would initially claim to Gardaí that Kasaba had raped her before she drove into the water, and that this was an act of self-defense. She told Gardaí that Kasaba was in love with her, and that for the last 2 years he continued to call her, text her, follow her. She said, quote, "He is dead because of his love for me. People think this is funny, but not for me. The second year it was no longer funny." She told Gardaí that he had gotten into the car and wanted her to go to the beach, and that he then began screaming at her. She told them how they were always arguing about their relationship, and that this is what they were arguing about at that time. Quote, "I feel I have enough of this. I drive to water. I cannot take this anymore." 4 months later, Marta was arrested on suspicion of murder. She denied that she drove into the water deliberately. "I would never want to hurt anyone or even to destroy my car." She would say that she was stressed and nervous, that she had to fight for her own life when they were in the water, and that she was going to save him if she could see him. She said she was screaming his name as she climbed out the ladder. While on bail, Marta actually went home to Poland, and while there, she sent an anonymous postcard to the Gardaí. It read, "Keep up the good work. Wish you were here. Hope you catch the killer." Her DNA would be found on the stamp. The trial began in 2016 and Marta pled not guilty. She would speak about how he constantly harassed her. A love letter from Kasaba was shown that he had sent her the previous year. The prosecution would put it to the jury that Marta had just gotten tired of the attention from Kasaba and decided to kill him. They believed that she had lured him out of his house that night. There were 3 calls from her phone to her colleague that night at around 5:30 a.m. They also said that Marta was a good swimmer and that she knew Kasaba wasn't. In fact, he was terrified of water. Marta turned away weeping when a video of Kasaba's last birthday was shown. Kasaba's brother Zoltan can be heard on the video saying that Marta was his present. The prosecution described the car as an instrument of murder. Her defense would say that to drive into that water would be suicidal and that Marta wasn't suicidal. So the judge told the jury that they had 3 options. They could say guilty of murder, not guilty of murder, or not guilty of murder but guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter. The jury would spend 8 hours deliberating. They found her guilty by a majority of 11 to 1. Justice Patrick McCartney would give her the mandatory life sentence. The following year, she had lodged an appeal against her conviction. And the 3-judge panel, Justice George Birmingham, Justice Alan Mahon, and Justice Moira Whelan, they basically said, like, the witnesses that had been called, had no interest in the case and that they were, witnesses of integrity. There was a nurse who had heard Marta on the phone that morning shouting and having an argument. There was also a security guard who had heard the car heading towards the pier, and he said that you could hear it slow down and then pick up speed. Justice Mahon said, "It was fanciful to suggest that driving a car off a harbour pier into deep water at speed was deliberate, but at the same time was not intended to kill or cause serious injury to Mr. Orsos." So the appeal judges basically said that even if she wanted to say, that she didn't deliberately drive in or this or that then it would still be the lesser charge of vehicular manslaughter, and that the judge at the time, McCartney, had very clearly told the jury what they could charge, and they decided on murder. They had been given the option of manslaughter and they didn't. So basically the appeal was just dismissed. The fact that Marta had claimed rape obviously brought a large weight or shadow onto Casaba's family, particularly his mother. So obviously when this came out then at trial, that it didn't, the Gardaí said, that this was, vindication for his family, that the dark stain that had been put on him was gone. So Marta is currently serving her life sentence in the Docus Centre in Mountjoy. So that is the story of Marta, who literally just drove her car into the water to kill her colleague who was in love with her. To be honest, I don't get it, and I'm not victim blaming in any way. But they worked together, right? They worked in a hotel together. If he was constantly following you and doing all these things, texting you, calling you, everything, and constantly at you to be in a relationship with him, why just not engage with him? I don't know why you were still, why were you at his birthday party? Why were you meeting me at 5:30 in the morning? So obviously you were still friends or whatever you were. And again, not victim blaming, but I kind of feel like there was more to it. And maybe it was more of a casual thing, that's what she was interested in. And that he was like, no, I want a relationship with you. I love you. I want to, a future with you, all these things. And maybe that's what the kind of annoying, harassing part was. I just don't know why you wouldn't tell him to F off, leave you alone, if it was just that simple, that black and white. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents. Tell me what you think. You could just be like, no, Casey, you are victim blaming, and she had every right to still be his friend, but not have, have all this harassing. But I do honestly think, why be friends with anyone who's being, treating you the way you don't want to be treated? Any friend, male or female. If you don't want to be treated that way, stop being their friend. Life lesson from Casey. I'm actually hoping to get this video up the same time as the last one that I recorded, so hopefully I'll get them out in kind of a day or two. Look at me being all productive. Oh, I just got the news today that that poor little boy, it's not an Irish case, sorry, the boy in the box, his name is found, they've finally named him. Now I don't think they've actually named him, but they have discovered who he was. It was back in the 50s, that poor little boy, and they have a name for him. I was so happy when I read it. Yeah, there's a little bit of good news for us, I suppose. I'm keeping it short and sweet, hopefully. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of the case. Let me know what you think of something. I don't know. We'll see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye.